Well, basically, if Charlie and I can't have a decent mental attitude, who can? I mean, we get to do what we love doing every day. We do it with people that are not only cheerful about it and like us, but they do their jobs extraordinarily well. They like their jobs too. We're forced to do virtually nothing that we don't want to do. I have a trainer that comes 3 times a week. I think she's probably here. She may think I'm a little begrudging in that particular activity, but that's only 45 minutes 3 times a week. And the rest of the time, I am doing I'm doing whatever I love day by day by day by day, and I do it, in air-conditioned offices and with all kinds of help. And how could you be sour about life, being blessed in so many ways? And then the amazing thing is that when Charlie's 84, I'm 77, and we've slowed down, I'm sure, in a lot of ways, but we pretend we haven't, and it doesn't seem to bother us. We get along fine. Great partners, great managers, great families. There's just no reason to look at any minuses in life and to focus on that. It would be crazy. So, we really do count our blessings because they've been many, and they continue to come forth, and we'll enjoy it as long as we can. There's not much more to it than that. Charlie?
Well, I wish we were poster boys for the benefits of running marathons and maintaining a very slim bodily state and so forth. But as nearly as I can tell, neither of us pays much attention to any health habits or dietary rules. And it seems to have worked pretty well so far. I don't think we can recommend it to everybody, but I, for one, don't plan to change.
Really, from the moment we get up to when we go to bed at night, we get to do all kinds of things. We get this associating with wonderful people is about as good as it gets. And we're biased, obviously, but we think we live in the best country in the world and had all kinds of good things. I mean, just imagine. Well, we could have stayed in my grandfather's grocery store and it would have been hell.
By the way, this relates to the subject of corporate compensation. You're in a job which you would pay to have if that were the only way to get it. And you're supposed to be an exemplar from other people, for other people. There's a lot to be said for not paying yourself very well.
He points that out to me regularly. Well, if you think about it, the idea that CEO compensation represents a market system and that you have to pay some guy a $10 million retention bonus or something to stay around in a job that, he's been fighting to keep and stacking the board and everything so that they keep him around and all. I mean, I don't know of a CEO in America. I'm sure there are a few, but I don't know of any that wouldn't gladly do the job at half the price or a quarter of the price. And I've seen some that have left jobs paying them 8 figures and nobody's offered them anything, a year later or 2 years later. I wonder where that wonderful market system is that's supposed to have all these bidders for their services. It's really sort of ridiculous, I think. Let's go on to 12.
Hi. I'm Richard Rantrop from Bonn, Germany. At the moment I attend high school and would like your wisdom on how to approach the question of what to do with the rest of my life. So,
we prefer things a little more difficult than that, if you've got to say.
So, Mr. Buffett, Mr. Munger, if you were about to start all over again, what profession would you choose and why?
Well, I would choose what I do because I have fun at it. I'm reasonably good at it. I meet a lot of interesting people through it. No heavy lifting. It fits me. But that that's not advice for you. I mean, you have to find out what's your passion in life. It's a terrible mistake to kind of sleepwalk through your life, because unless Shirley MacLaine's right, it's the only one you're going to have. So I was very lucky in that I found my passion early. I mean, that's not easy. That takes some luck. It just so happened my dad was in a business that had a very small office, and he had a bunch of books down there. And when I would go down there on Saturday or after school, I would start reading those books, and it turned me on. And this was before Playboy actually existed. And so, that was just plain lucky. If he'd been a minister, I'm not so sure I would have gotten quite as enthused about visiting the office. But and I can't prescribe that for you. But I can tell you that if you're going through the motions in life, you're doing something. Now, obviously, if you need the job you have and you can't make a change, and your kids have to eat and all of that, you deal with realities like that. But when you're in a position to make choices, I always tell the kids that come visit me, I tell them, go to work for an organization you admire or an individual you admire. That means that many of them become self-employed, but but the idea, you can't get a bad result. I went to work for Ben Graham when I was 24. I only worked for him for less than 2 years, but I jumped out of bed every day in the morning. I was excited about what I was going to do. I was learning things. I was with a man I admired. I never asked my salary when I took that job. I moved to New York City and found out what my salary was when I got the check. So just be sure you get the right spouse. That's enormously important. As Charlie says, the problem, is that we talk about that fellow that spent 20 years looking for the perfect woman, and then he found her, and unfortunately she was looking for the perfect man. So you may have a problem in that respect. But it's enormously important who you marry. I mean, it's a huge decision. And if you're lucky in a couple of things like that, you're going to have a happy life, and you're going to behave better as you go along. I mean, it's a lot easier to behave well when things are going your way and you're enjoying your work, and you're thinking about things every day that are the kind of things you like to think about. And Charlie has a lot better advice than I have on that. Go to it.
Well, of course, you'll do better if you develop a passion for something in which you have a considerable aptitude. I think if Warren had gone into the ballet, nobody would have ever heard of him.
Oh, I think they'd have heard of me, just in a different way, Charlie. Well, the chances are, if you find something that turns you on, you probably do have some talent for it, though. I mean, I don't think I could have gotten turned on by ballet.
Yeah.
We're going to go now to 13, which is in an adjacent ballroom. We have multiple overflow rooms, which is how we're handling the 31,000. The grand ballroom is the only one where we've got a microphone in. So let's go to number 13. Somebody there?
I'm Nancy Ankowitz. I'm from New York City, and I teach at New York University. Mr. Buffett, I'd love to get your advice on something that's a little off the investing path, but that taps into your business experience and wisdom. I'm writing a book to help people of a more introverted nature get the recognition they deserve. What advice would you give to the quieter half of the population to help them raise their visibility in their careers?
Well, that's a very good question, and I sort of faced that at one time. I was absolutely, throughout high school and college, terrified of public speaking, and I avoided any classes, signing up for them that would require it. I would get physically ill if I even thought about having to do it, let alone doing it. And I took a Dale. First of all, I signed up. I went down to a Dale Carnegie course when I was at Columbia, and signed up for it. Gave him a check for $100. Went back to my room and stopped payment on the check. this is a real man of courage you're looking at up here. And then I came out to Omaha and I saw a similar ad. I was at the Rome Hotel for you old timers in Omaha on 16th Street, and I went down there. And this time I took $100 in cash and gave it to Wally Keenan, who some of you may know. He died some years ago. First time I'd met him, and I took that course. And when I finished that course, I went right out to the University of Omaha and volunteered to start teaching, knowing that I had to get up in front of people. I think the ability to communicate both in writing and orally is of enormous importance, undertaught. Most graduate business schools, they wouldn't find an instructor to do it because it would sort of be beneath them to do something so supposedly simple. But if you can communicate well, you have an enormous advantage. And to you who are talking to the group of introverted people, and believe me, I was in certain ways quite introverted, it's important to get out there and do it while you're young. If you wait till you're 50, it's probably too late. But if you do it while you're young, just force yourself into situations where you have to develop those abilities. And I think the best way to do that is to get in with a whole bunch of other people who are having equal problems, because then you find you're not alone and you don't feel quite as silly. And of course, that's what they did at the Dale Carnegie course. I mean, we would get up in front of 30 other people who could hardly give their own name, and after a while we found out we could actually pronounce our own name in front of a group. But we would stand on tables and do all kinds of silly things just to get outside of ourselves. And you may have thought by this point you may think it went too far in my particular case, but that's another problem. But you're doing something very worthwhile if you're helping introverted people get outside of themselves and working with them in groups where they see other people have the same problem and they don't feel quite as silly themselves. I think you're doing a lot for some human beings when you help them do that. Charlie?
Yeah, it's a real pleasure to have an educator come who is working to do something simple and important instead of something foolish and unimportant.
I hope he's not going to name names.